Hello, this is a review of the movie It Follows. Now, there was much build-up and hype over this movie. The trailer that I saw for it emphasizes how scary it is. You know, don't watch it alone and all this kind of thing. So I had mixed feelings as to how I would react to something like this because I've seen a lot of horror movies and I don't really know what new twist you can put on them, so I decided to watch this. This movie begins in a nice suburban neighborhood, and we see a young woman come running out of her house, apparently trying to run away from something, and then that there's nothing following her or whatever, and then she turns around and goes back in the house again. And then shortly after, she comes out again running away in panic, gets in a car and speeds off. And the next thing we see her, she's at a beach, and it's at night, and she's sitting on the beach talking into her phone, kind of really incoherently, just rambling on about something, we don't really know what. And the next thing we see her body on the beach, and she's dead, and her body is mutilated. No clue as to what happened or anything like that. Next, we cut to another young woman and her friends. I believe she's supposed to be 19 years old, and she's getting ready to go out on a date. And she has several of her friends at her house with her. She has, the nerdy type girl and the boy next door type, and her sister is there and so forth. And she goes out on a date with this guy, and eventually one thing leads to another, and they have sex. And after they have sex, he grabs her and he puts a rag over her mouth until she passes out. And when she comes to, she's duct taped to what looks to be a wheelchair. And they're in a kind of a abandoned industrial park area is where they are, and he tells her that now she's going to be followed by something, and you have to stay away from it and not let it touch you. And she's thinking, well, what the hell is wrong with this guy? He's obviously whacked or whatever, But then he says, there it is, and they look, and it appears. What appears to be a naked woman is walking towards them. Only they don't really zoom in on her, but apparently she's not human or whatever. She looks kind of like a zombie or a monster or something like this. And he tells her that these things are going to be following her. They can look, like someone or they can look like a total stranger, but you have to stay away from them and not let them touch you. They can't run, but they can walk, and they can figure out where you are or whatever. So then he takes her back to her house, throws her out of the car, and takes off. Well, she tells her friends what happened, and she reports the incident to the police, and they really don't know what to make of it. She tells them, well, I know I wasn't raped, it was consensual sex or whatever, and she doesn't really know what to make of this, but it turns out that this guy was correct. Something does follow her, and the only thing is, she's the only one that can see it. Apparently, if you're plagued by this, you're the only one that can see it, and the person that gave it to you, they can see it also. And I believe he told her that if this thing kills her, then it's going to come back after him. So she's supposed to avoid this thing at all costs, and the only way you can get rid of it is by having sex with somebody, he tells her. Well, the rest of this movie is her and her friends trying to deal with this curse, or whatever you want to call it. To me now, this kind of reminded me a little bit of the old horror movies, like from the 80s, the old slasher movies, whereby, excuse me, anybody who had sex in these movies was sure to be killed shortly after. Having sex was like not a thing you want to do in a horror movie. And basically the rest of this movie is her and her friends, like I say, trying to deal with this. And the only problem for us is it's really not that scary because she's the only one that can see it, and none of the other people in the movie except the guy who gave it to her can see this thing. So like she's seeing these weird zombie-like people following her around and so forth, but nobody else can see them, so they're not scared, and she's the only one that's scared. So to the viewer, it's really not that scary. I mean, there's only like one scary part that I remember in the movie. I won't give it away, but you know, it's more psychological, I think, than it is what you see. It's the thought that these things can basically show up anywhere you are, and they can look like anything. You don't really know when they're going to be around. I guess my recommendation is, if you want something that's going to really scare the crap out of you, this is not going to do it. I might not be the target audience for this film, seeing as how I'm an old boy, but I've seen quite a few horror films in my time, and I would have to say that this is not very scary. If you want a little bit different type of horror film, you know, more psychological than anything else, this might fit the bill for you, because if you like something a little bit different, you know, not your just standard murderer or slasher type film, this is more of a psychological and supernatural type thing, this might fit the bill for you. Now, things that they could have done better, there's no explanation given as to where these things come from that follow her, you know, how they got started. The guy that gave it to her doesn't really have an explanation other than the fact that he got it from someone else. So it might have been a little interesting to have some backstory as to how this got started, but I don't know. Maybe it's scarier that you don't know where it comes from. I guess I'll let you guys decide that. So I guess if you like more of a psychological film, something a little different than your standard slasher film, I guess maybe you would like it, but I don't find it to be very scary. This movie is rated R primarily, I believe, because of some nudity and language, and there are some sex scenes in it, but they're very tame. It's mostly having sex under the covers or with your clothes, most of them on, so there's really nothing to see there. So I guess I'd recommend it if you like something different and a little psychological, but to scare the crap out of you, no, this isn't going to do it. If you've seen this film and you'd like to, you know, comment on what you thought about it, if you liked it or didn't, feel free to do that in the comments section. Comment, rate, and subscribe. And as always, thank you very much for watching my videos.